The younger the age at onset, the greater the likelihood that genetics play a role. Today, about 10% of people living with Parkinson's are thought to have an underlying genetic cause as the principal explanation for their disease. While this is a small proportion, these genetic causes help scientists understand how Parkinson's develops and provide possible targets for new treatments. Young onset Parkinson's disease, or YOPD, is a rare syndrome. It's recognised by Orphanet. It's a diagnosis of people under the age of 50, but you will always be young onset. So there are people who live with this condition for decades. There's an understanding now that the younger a patient or a person with Parkinson's, the younger they are, the more likely there is to be a genetic cause at the heart of their condition. So presenting symptoms for YOPD can vary, but there are an awful lot of common stories that you hear anecdotally. We know frozen shoulder is very common, depression is very common, a presenting symptom of dystonia in the feet, a clawing of toes, usually with the big toe coming up. We're delighted that the World Parkinson's Congress has seen that there is a very great need to look at young onset in its own right. And for Eli and the WPC to give us this opportunity to put together a working group to look specifically at young onset and how prevalent it is globally, what the differences are across all nations. It's absolutely a step in the right direction. It's going to bring us some answers, I think. Genetic testing is going to be a major part of that. Hopefully working with the likes of GP2 and the other organisations out there who are looking at whole genome sequencing, not just testing, but whole genome sequencing for young onset. That'll bring answers, and that will absolutely be integral to the WPC project. Actually, it's in fact due to the WPC that this project even had legs in the first place, because I was at the last WPC in Kyoto as a guest of Cure Parkinsons, and at effectively, I guess it's like the wrap party, the drinks and nibbles at the end, I met Matt Farah, and the conversation was, Matt, what are you doing? What do you do? I'm a geneticist. I'm working on a project for young onset Parkinson's. Well, that's quite useful, Matt. I run, as far as I know at this point, the only dedicated charity for young onset Parkinson's. Not long after Kyoto, Matt came over to the UK and we met up again. This is one of several conversations that we had in the car.
So the project is basically to try and identify additional gene targets for early onset, for young onset Parkinson's disease. And to do more than that, to correlate those genetic findings with clinical findings and perhaps pathologic findings as well in the patients that have them. So essentially what's involved is spitting in a tube, a bit of mouthwash, doesn't take a lot.
We'll be filming that later.
Yes.
So let's look forward to everyone.
And from swilling around some mouthwash, we can get enough cells from your cheeks and your tongue to make several micrograms of DNA, and with that we can sequence your entire human genome. And the plan is to do that with the help of thousands of patients with young onset Parkinson's disease, and to put that information out there on the web in a secure way and private way, anonymized way, and share it with investigators worldwide, and share it also with, of course, the persons who donated those spit samples in the first place, so that they can also put in information about how they're feeling, how they're doing, how the disease is progressing, what treatments are working and what isn't, and build up a picture basically of genetic variability and clinical variability, and see how the two correlate. So that's the project.
Is anyone doing this already? Is this new cutting edge stuff, or what's so special about this?
So it's special for a couple of different reasons. First of all, it's focused on young onset Parkinson's disease, and there are some similar genetic projects. For example, 23andMe and the Fox Foundation are doing genotyping. It's not sequencing, so the difference there is that we're looking at 6 billion nucleotides, and 23andMe are looking at 2.5 million. So there's orders of magnitude of sequence breadth, if you like. And they're also focused on mostly late onset Parkinson's disease. They're not focused on early onset specifically. So there's two big differences. And the third difference, I suppose, is that the subjects themselves, the persons themselves who are taking part, I shouldn't say subjects because you don't like that term, although, okay.
Well, it's not me. I've had feedback from people and subjects.
Don't appreciate it, yeah.
No, they want to be people first and foremost.
Yeah, so the people who are taking part in this, I'd like them to also have access to their own genetic information, and I'd like to try and make that information intelligible, accessible, so that people can start thinking about the findings and thinking about the consequences of those for their own health.
So my mate Matt has brilliantly explained the vision behind this project. Now we need to make that vision a reality. So I'm asking you for an expression of interest, and you can do that by going to the Spotlight website, spotlightyopd.org/WPC.